Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Sovereign's Will, watching the blue-green marble that was Earth grow larger on the view screen. The Galactic Empire's finest war machines surrounded him, 300 vessels of destruction, each capable of glassing a continent. This would be the shortest conquest in Imperial history. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting primitive nuclear weapons and basic energy shields. Their technology appears to be at least 5 centuries behind our own. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. The humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel, yet they dared to reject the Empire's generous offer of submission. Their response to the ultimatum had been colorful. Something about what the Empire could do with its demands, involving anatomically impossible suggestions. Begin orbital bombardment of their military installations, Zethkar commanded. Let's show these primitives the cost of defiance. The fleet opened fire. Lances of plasma rained down upon Earth's surface, vaporizing military bases, shipyards, and defensive platforms. Cities burned. Millions died in the first hour. Zethkar expected immediate surrender. Instead, his communications officer received a single message from Earth. Is that all you've got? Captain Sarah Chen floated in the ruins of Luna Base, her EVA suit the only thing keeping her alive in the twisted metal wreckage. Around her, the bodies of her crewmates drifted in the vacuum. But she wasn't looking at them. She was looking at Earth, watching the Empire's ships rain death upon her homeworld. Bastards, she whispered, activating her suit's emergency beacon. Not for rescue. There would be none. But because every human who died in this war was going to make sure their death served a purpose. The beacon transmitted everything her suit's sensors had recorded about the alien ship's capabilities, their formations, their blind spots. It was crude intelligence, but it was something. Across the solar system, survivors in hidden bunkers, damaged ships, and remote outposts were doing the same thing. Humanity was learning. 3 days later, Zethkar received reports that made his secondary heart skip beats. Human vessels, primitive, cobbled-together things, were emerging from asteroid fields and gas giant shadows. They should have been easy prey. They weren't. The humans fought with a savagery that defied logic. Their ships were slower, their weapons weaker, their armor pathetic. But they compensated with tactics that no civilized species would consider. They used their own vessels as guided missiles. They detonated nuclear weapons at point-blank range, trading their lives for minor damage to Imperial hulls. They hid in debris fields and struck like parasites. Most disturbing of all, they learned. Every engagement taught them something new about Imperial technology. They adapted with frightening speed, modifying their weapons, changing their tactics, exploiting weaknesses that the Empire didn't even know existed. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, his voice trembling, "we've intercepted human communications. They're calling this Tuesday." What does that mean? According to our translation protocols, it's one of their standard time periods. They're treating our invasion as routine. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne worked in a laboratory buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by the brightest minds humanity had to offer. The facility ran on geothermal power, hidden from the Empire's sensors, and it had become the beating heart of human resistance. "Show me what we've learned," she said to her team. The holographic display filled with technical schematics captured from destroyed Imperial vessels. Week by week, day by day, humanity was dissecting the Empire's technology like a patient surgeon. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency, Dr. Kim reported. But there's a 7-millisecond gap during transition. Their hull plating can't handle resonance frequencies above 47.3 terahertz, added Dr. Okafor. And their faster-than-light drives create a distinctive gravitational signature, Dr. Singh concluded. We can track them. Elizabeth smiled grimly. The Empire had made a fundamental error. They'd assumed that primitive meant stupid. They'd given humanity time to study them, to learn, to adapt. And humans, she knew, were very good at learning from their mistakes. How long until we can begin? Phase 2? She asked. 72 hours, Kim replied. Elizabeth nodded. The Empire thought they were fighting a primitive species. They were about to learn what it meant to fight survivors of the Permian extinction, descendants of creatures who had crawled out of primordial oceans and conquered an entire world through sheer, bloody-minded persistence. Admiral Zethkar barely had time to register the sensor warnings before human ships materialized around his fleet. Not the crude vessels they'd been fighting. These were different, sleeker, deadlier, built with stolen Imperial technology and human ingenuity. The first salvo shattered his flagship's shields. The second punched through armor that had protected the Empire for 1,000 years. The third sent the Sovereign's will tumbling into Earth's atmosphere like a burning meteor. As Zethkar's escape pod fell toward the blue-green world below, he finally understood what his tactical computers had been trying to tell him for weeks. This wasn't an invasion. It was a learning experience for humanity. His pod crashed in what the humans called Montana. As he crawled from the wreckage, broken and defeated, he saw them waiting. Not soldiers. Those would have been merciful. These were scientists, researchers. They were smiling. "Welcome to Earth," one of them said in perfect galactic standard. "We have so much to learn from each other." 6 months later, the few surviving Imperial vessels limped back to the core worlds, carrying word of humanity's surrender. They reported that the humans had agreed to join the Empire as a client species. What they didn't report was the true nature of the agreement. Humanity would indeed join the Empire as teachers. They would share their remarkable gift for adaptation, their talent for learning, their unique perspective on warfare and survival. Within a generation, every species in the Empire would learn to think like humans, to adapt like humans, to survive like humans. The Empire had sought to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they had infected themselves with the most dangerous virus in the galaxy, human nature. As Admiral Chen, formerly Captain Chen, stood on the bridge of her new command, the Imperial Dreadnought Second Chance, she smiled at the irony. The Empire had gotten exactly what they wanted: human submission. They just hadn't realized that sometimes the conquered conquer their conquerors.